I stood alone in the bridal suite, my hands trembling as I reached behind my back for the 100th time, fingers fumbling uselessly with the intricate row of silk-covered buttons running down my spine. The wedding dress was beautiful ivory lace that hugged my waist before cascading into layers of tulle, but it was also a prison I couldn't escape without help. My mother should have been here. My bridesmaids should have been here. But Mom had texted 20 minutes ago saying she'd gotten stuck in traffic, and my bridesmaids were downstairs managing some crisis with the florist. I'd told them to go. I'd told them I'd be fine. I wasn't fine. Through the tall windows of the country club's bridal suite, I could see guests beginning to gather on the lawn below, white chairs arranged in perfect rows, an archway draped in roses, everything exactly as I'd dreamed since I was a little girl. Except David still hadn't texted me back. I checked my phone again. Nothing. The ceremony was supposed to start in 30 minutes, and my groom hadn't responded to a single message all morning. I told myself he was just nervous, that he was with his groomsmen, getting ready, probably laughing off his pre-wedding jitters with shots of whiskey. But something felt wrong. I'd felt it for weeks now, a creeping unease I couldn't name. David had been distant, distracted. He'd canceled our final venue walkthrough, skipped the rehearsal dinner planning meeting, and last week when I'd tried to talk to him about our honeymoon, he'd snapped at me in a way that made my stomach twist. "It's just wedding stress," my mother had assured me. "All grooms get cold feet." I wanted to believe her. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Come in," I called, relief flooding through me. Finally, help. The door opened slowly, but it wasn't my mother. It wasn't one of my bridesmaids. It was a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, taller than David, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, eyes so dark they looked black in the afternoon light filtering through the windows. He wore an immaculate three-piece suit, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes, and moved with the kind of confidence that made the air shift around him. I took an instinctive step backward, my hand flying to my chest. "Who are you?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "This is a private room. I know." His voice was deep, quiet, and unnervingly calm. He closed the door behind him with a soft click that sounded too final. "You need help with your dress." It wasn't a question. Heat rushed to my cheeks. "I'm waiting for my mother. She'll be here She won't." He crossed the room in 3 strides, moving behind me before I could react. "Turn around." "Excuse me?" I spun to face him, my heart hammering. "I don't know who you are, but you need to leave right now or I'm calling security?" His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "They're busy." Fear prickled down my spine. Something about the way he said it so matter-of-fact, so certain made me believe him. Made me understand that whatever was happening right now was deliberate. "What do you want?" I whispered. For a long moment, he just looked at me. His gaze moved over my face with an intensity that made me feel exposed, seen in a way I'd never experienced. Then he gestured toward the mirror. "Turn around, Mia." He knew my name. My breath caught. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to scream, to do something, but my feet wouldn't move. There was something in his eyes, not cruelty, but a kind of weighted knowledge that pinned me in place. Slowly, trembling, I turned. His hands settled on my shoulders, steadying me. His touch was warm through the delicate lace, firm but not rough. I watched in the mirror as he began fastening the buttons I'd been struggling with, his fingers moving with surprising dexterity. "You're scared," he observed quietly. "Good. You should be." "Are you going to hurt me?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "No." "Then why are you here?" He fastened another button, then another. His face remained impassive, focused on his task. But I saw something flicker in his expression, something almost like regret. "To give you a choice," he said finally. "A choice about what?" He secured the last button, his hands lingering for just a moment before falling away. Then he met my eyes in the mirror, and what I saw there made my blood run cold. "About whether you want to know the truth." "What truth?" My voice cracked. "About what? About David?" The name hung in the air between us. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Your groom isn't coming, Mia." The world tilted. I spun around, nearly tripping over my dress. "What? What are you talking about?" Of course he's coming. He's gone. The word was flat, final. He left the city last night, took everything he could carry and ran. No, I shook my head, backing away until I hit the vanity table. No, that's not your lying. Why would you? Because he stole from the wrong people. The stranger's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath now. And those people sent me to deliver a message. My hands gripped the edge of the vanity, my knees threatening to buckle. I don't understand. David wouldn't. He's a financial consultant. He's a thief. The stranger took a step closer, and I realized with growing horror that I could see it now, the danger in him. Not in his actions, but in the absolute certainty with which he moved through the world. Like someone who'd never been told no and survived every time someone tried. He's been embezzling from his clients for 2 years. Nearly $4 million. When his partners discovered it, he panicked. And when he realized he couldn't run far enough fast enough alone, he paused, his dark eyes holding mine. He sold information. About you. About your father's business connections. About accounts and contracts and passwords he convinced you to share because you trusted him. The room spun. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. My father's a dentist, I whispered. He doesn't have. Your father processes billing for 3 private medical networks that service certain selective clientele. The stranger's tone made it clear exactly what kind of clientele. David promised my employer's enemies access to financial records, payment trails, names. Oh God, no. So what? My voice broke. I forced myself to continue. What happens now? You're here to what? Kill me? If I wanted you dead, you'd already be gone. He said it so simply, like he was commenting on the weather. I'm here because my employer wants to know if you were involved. Involved? Tears burned behind my eyes. I didn't know anything. I thought David loved me. I thought we were building a life together. I know. The softness in those 2 words shocked me more than anything else he'd said. You know? I repeated. Then why? Because knowing and proving are different things. He reached into his jacket, and my entire body tensed. But he only withdrew a phone not his own, I realized. The case was bright blue with a cracked corner. David's phone. You have messages. From him, 3 days ago. With shaking hands, I took the phone. Unlocked it with David's password, our anniversary. God, how stupid I'd been. And opened his texts. I'm sorry, Mia. I never meant for any of this. But I can't fix it anymore. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't look for me. Don't trust anyone. Especially not him. The message was from Wednesday night. While I'd been home addressing wedding invitations, David had been, what? Packing? Planning his escape? Selling me out to criminals? Who's him? I looked up at the stranger. Who are you? Someone who makes problems disappear. He held out his hand for the phone. The question is what I do about you. I didn't do anything wrong. My voice came out stronger now, edged with anger that burned through the shock. I'm just the idiot who believed him. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in that stone facade. You're not an idiot. Then what am I? A loose end. The words should have terrified me. They did terrify me, but underneath the fear, something else was building, a wild, reckless fury at David, at this stranger, at the entire nightmare my wedding day had become. So what? I met his dark eyes without flinching. You're going to make me disappear too? He studied me for a long moment, his gaze moving over my face like he was memorizing it, or deciding something. No, he said finally. I'm going to give you a choice. What choice? He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath. Gun oil, maybe. Or danger itself. You can walk out of this room right now. Go downstairs. Tell everyone your groom got cold feet. Cry. Let them comfort you. Go home and try to rebuild your life while I clean up David's mess. His voice dropped lower, more intense. Or you can come with me. Right now. And I'll tell you everything. Show you everything. Let you decide if you want justice or revenge. My heart hammered against my ribs. Why would you do that? Because you deserve the truth. He turned toward the door, then paused. And because the moment David used your name, you stopped being innocent. Whether you knew it or not, you're part of this now. He pulled open the door. 60 seconds, Mia. Decide. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in my wedding dress with shaking hands and a choice that felt like falling. I looked at myself in the mirror, at the beautiful dress I'd spent months choosing, at the makeup and hair that had taken hours, at the girl who'd woken up this morning believing in fairy tales. She was gone now. Whatever I did next, she wasn't coming back. I picked up my phone, ignored the 17 missed calls from my mother, and walked out the door after the stranger who'd just destroyed my life. He was waiting by a black Mercedes at the far end of the parking lot, away from the cluster of guests arriving for a wedding that would never happen. When he saw me hurrying across the pavement, my dress gathered in both fists. Something flickered across his face too quickly for me to read. He opened the passenger door without a word. I hesitated at the threshold between everything I'd known and everything I didn't. Behind me, I could hear music starting the string quartet I'd hired playing the prelude I'd chosen. Any moment now, someone would realize I was missing. My mother would panic. The coordinator would search. Last chance, the stranger said quietly. I got in the car. He closed the door with a soft thunk that sounded like finality, then moved around to the driver's side with that same unhurried grace. Like he had all the time in the world. Like he did this every day. Maybe he did. The interior smelled like leather and something crisp cedar. Maybe. Everything was immaculate. Clean lines, dark surfaces, nothing personal, nothing soft. He started the engine, and we pulled away from the country club in silence. I watched the venue disappear in the side mirror, the white tent, the roses, the guests milling around wondering where the bride had gone. My phone buzzed incessantly in my lap. Mom, my sister, the wedding planner. I turned it off. Where are we going? My voice sounded strange, distant. Somewhere private. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting right now. I turned to look at him properly for the first time. In profile, he was even more striking, all sharp angles and controlled power. His hands on the steering wheel were steady. No rings, no watch, nothing that could identify him. You never told me your name, I said. Dante. Just the one word. No last name. No explanation. Dante. I repeated. Is that real? His lips curved slightly. Does it matter? I guess not. I looked down at my hands, twisted together in my lap. They were shaking. I should call someone. My mom is going to lose her mind. The guests are already being told the wedding is postponed. Your coordinator received an anonymous call 15 minutes ago explaining that the groom had a family emergency. I stared at him. You planned this, all of it. I prepare for contingencies. He merged onto the highway, heading away from the city, including the possibility that you'd be smart enough to come with me. Smart. I laughed, but it sounded broken. I just abandoned my wedding to get in a car with a man who told me he makes problems disappear. That's not smart. That's insane. Maybe. He glanced at me briefly, those dark eyes unreadable. Or maybe you're the first person in your life who's ever told you the truth. The words hit harder than they should have, because he was right. David had lied. For months, maybe years. And I'd been so eager to believe in our future together that I'd ignored every red flag, every inconsistency, every moment when something felt wrong, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. How did you find me? I asked. How did you know where the wedding was? I know everything about you, Mia. His tone was factual, not threatening. Somehow that made it worse. I know you graduated with a degree in art history but work as a museum docent because you can't afford to be choosy. I know you have a younger sister finishing nursing school and an older brother who drinks too much. I know your favorite coffee shop, your jogging route, and the fact that you read romance novels on your lunch break. My cheeks burned. That's necessary. He cut me off. When someone becomes a person of interest, I learn everything. It's how I determine threat level. And what's my threat level? Low. He paused, but rising. What does that mean? He didn't answer. Just drove. His focus on the road ahead while I sat beside him in a wedding dress I'd never worn down the aisle, feeling like I'd stepped through a door into a world that operated by completely different rules. We drove for 40 minutes. The city fell away, replaced by wooded areas and winding roads. Eventually, Dante turned down a private drive, marked only by a number on a stone pillar. The drive stretched for at least a mile through dense trees before opening onto a sprawling property. The house was modern, all glass and dark wood and clean lines, minimalist, expensive, isolated. Dante parked in front and came around to open my door, offering his hand like a gentleman at a society function. The contrast was absurd. I ignored his hand and climbed out on my own, my heels sinking slightly into the gravel. "This is where you bring people?" I asked. "To disappear them?" "No." He locked the car. "This is where I bring people when I want privacy. There's a difference." He led me inside, and despite everything, I couldn't help but notice the beauty of it. Soaring ceilings, minimalist furniture, art on the walls that looked original and probably cost more than my yearly salary. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a lake I hadn't seen from the drive. "Sit," Dante gestured toward a leather sofa. "I'll get you something to drink." "I don't want." "You're in shock. You need water. Sit." There was no request in his tone, just expectation of obedience. And strangely, I found myself complying, sinking onto the sofa while he disappeared into what I assumed was a kitchen. He returned with water in a crystal glass and something amber in a tumbler for himself. Whiskey, probably. He set the water on the coffee table in front of me and settled into the chair across from me. His movements controlled and deliberate. "Ask your questions," he said. I had about 1,000. I started with the most important one. "Is David alive?" "Yes." Relief and anger flooded through me in equal measure. "Where is he?" "I don't know yet, but I will." Dante took a sip of whiskey. "He has skills covering his tracks, creating false identities. But he's also arrogant. He'll slip. They always do. And when he does, what happens to him? That depends on what he knows and what he's already told." "You mean you'll kill him?" I said it flatly. "Possibly." Dante's expression didn't change. "Or I'll extract what I need and let him run until someone else catches him. Either way, he's not your problem anymore. He was going to be my husband." My voice cracked despite my efforts to stay composed. "We were supposed to. I thought we were going to build a life together. Have kids. Grow old. And you're telling me he was just... what? Using me the whole time?" "No." Dante leaned forward slightly, his elbows on his knees. "I think he cared about you, Mia. As much as someone like him is capable of caring about anyone. But when survival instincts kick in, people show you who they really are." "Someone like him," I repeated. "What does that make you?" His eyes darkened. "Someone much worse." The words should have scared me. Instead, they felt like the first honest thing anyone had said to me in months. "Why did you really bring me here?" I met his gaze. "You could have just warned me. Sent me a message. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did." His intensity pinned me in place. "David mentioned your name to people who trade in information and violence. The moment he did that, you became visible to a world you should never have seen. I brought you here to assess whether you're a liability or an asset. And which am I?" He studied me in that unnerving way he had, like he could see past my skin into whatever lived underneath. "I'm still deciding." My hands clenched in the fabric of my dress. "I want to see the proof. Everything you have on David. I want to know exactly what he did." "Why?" "Because I don't believe in fairy tales anymore." The words came out bitter. "I believe in facts." Something shifted in Dante's expression. Approval, maybe, or respect. He stood, finishing his whiskey in one swallow, and gestured for me to follow him. "Then come with me." He led me deeper into the house, through a hallway lined with more expensive art, until we reached a door that looked heavier than the others. He pressed his thumb to a biometric lock. It clicked open. The room beyond was an office, but not like any office I'd ever seen. Multiple monitors lined one wall, filing cabinets that looked fireproof, a safe built into the floor. Dante moved to a desk and opened a laptop. A few keystrokes later, he turned the screen toward me. "Everything I know about David Castellano," he said quietly, "and why your wedding day was never going to happen." I stepped forward and began to read. With each paragraph, each document, each photograph, the man I thought I'd love disappeared completely, and the stranger watching me from across the room became the only solid thing in my collapsing world. The files were meticulous. Bank transfers traced through shell corporations, email exchanges with people whose names I didn't recognize but whose intentions were clear, photographs of David meeting with men in expensive suits in dimly lit restaurants, audio recordings, his voice, casual and cold, discussing me like I was a transaction. She doesn't know anything. She's harmless. Just a way in. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles white against the dark wood. When was this recorded? My voice sounded hollow. 3 weeks ago. Dante stood behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence like heat. He met with a man named Vincent Rossi, an associate of the Luciano family. Luciano. The name meant nothing to me. Who are they? One of the 5 families that control most of the East Coast's alternative economy. Dante's tone was measured. Educational. Drugs, weapons, money laundering. They've been trying to expand into legitimate medical billing for years. Your father's company was a target. David was their way in. My father doesn't know, I said quickly. He would never. I know. Dante reached past me and clicked to another file. Your father is clean. Oblivious, but clean. David was going to plant access points in the system and blame it on a security breach. By the time anyone realized what had happened, the Lucianos would have everything they needed. I stared at the screen, at the evidence of David's betrayal laid out in neat digital rows. How do you know all this? Because preventing it is my job. Your job. I turned to face him, and the proximity startled me. He was inches away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. What exactly do you do, Dante? He held my gaze for a long moment. Then he stepped back, creating distance that felt deliberate. I manage problems for people who can't afford for those problems to become public. You're a fixer, among other things. And who do you work for? His expression shuddered. People you should never meet, but David already made me meet them. Frustration bled into my voice, or at least made me visible to them. So what does that mean? What happens to me now? Dante moved to the window, his back to me. Against the fading daylight, he was all dark lines and controlled power. For the first time since I'd met him, he seemed uncertain, like he was weighing something he couldn't quite calculate. There are protocols, he said finally. When civilians get tangled in family business, there are ways to handle it, quietly. Handle it. My throat tightened. You mean kill them? Sometimes. He turned and his face was unreadable. Or relocate them. New identity. New city, new life, far away from anything they knew. You're saying I have to disappear. I'm saying that's the standard solution. His dark eyes locked on mine. But I haven't decided if that's what I'm going to do. Why not? Because you're not standard. He crossed back toward me, and this time I didn't retreat. You walked out of that wedding knowing nothing except that I was dangerous. You got in my car. You came here. You demanded answers instead of collapsing into hysteria. He stopped a foot away. That tells me you're either incredibly stupid or incredibly brave. Maybe I'm both. His lips curved, not quite a smile, but something warmer than the cold mask he'd worn earlier. Maybe. So what do you want from me? I asked. Really? He considered the question like it mattered. Like my answer would change something. I want to know if you'll run, he said quietly. Or if you'll fight. Fight who? David? The Lucianos? You? All of it. He moved closer, and I felt my breath catch. David destroyed your life. The Lucianos want to use you, and I'm supposed to make you vanish. But if you want something different, if you want to be part of fixing this, then I need to know you won't break. Part of fixing it how? David took something that wasn't his. From my employer. Money, information, leverage. Dante's voice dropped lower, more intense. I can find him. But finding him doesn't mean I can recover everything. He's hidden assets, made copies of files, created insurance policies in case someone comes after him. And the only person he might still care about enough to contact is me, I finished. Yes, I stepped back, needing space to think, to process what he was really asking. You want to use me as bait. I want to give you a choice. His correction was firm. You can disappear, new name, new life, and you never think about David or any of this again. Or you can help me bring him in, get justice for what he did, maybe even help protect your family from the fallout. And if I help you? What happens after? That depends on how it goes. His honesty was brutal. Best case, we get David, we recover what he took, and the Lucianos lose interest in you. You go back to your life minus a fiancé. Worst case, I end up dead. You end up protected. The shift in his tone made me look up sharply. If you do this, you're under my watch. My responsibility. Nothing touches you without going through me first. The weight of his words settled between us like a promise. Or a threat. I couldn't tell which. Why would you do that? I asked. Protect me? What do you get out of it? For the first time, I saw something crack in his careful control, a flash of something raw and complicated before he locked it down again. Because the alternative is watching you disappear, he said roughly. And I've made enough people disappear to know what that costs. The confession hung in the air. I looked at him, really looked at him, past the expensive suit and the dangerous competence and the carefully blank expression. Tried to see what lived underneath. I saw exhaustion, control stretched thin, and something that looked almost like hope that I was too afraid to name. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll do it. His eyes widened, fractionally surprised he couldn't quite hide. You're sure? No. I laughed, sharp and slightly unhinged. I'm not sure about anything right now, but I know I don't want to run. And I know David doesn't get to just walk away after what he did. Dante studied me for another long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. What are you doing? I asked. Making arrangements. He pocketed the phone. If you're staying in this world, you can't go home. Not yet. Your apartment isn't secure, and if the Lucianos are watching you, going back there puts you at risk. So where do I go? Here. He said it simply. This house is off-grid. No public records, no paper trail. You'll be safe while we work. You want me to stay here? With you? Unless you have a better option. I didn't. And the terrifying part was that some small, reckless piece of me didn't want one. Fine, I said. But I need clothes, and my things, and I need to contact my family before they file a missing persons report. All manageable. Dante moved toward the door, then paused. There's a bedroom upstairs, second door on the left. You should get out of that dress. I looked down at myself at the wedding gown I was still wearing, now wrinkled and slightly dirty at the hem from walking through gravel. It felt like armor I no longer needed. Yeah, I said softly. I should. When I looked up, Dante was watching me with an expression I couldn't read, something intense and complicated and carefully leashed. Then he turned and left me alone in his office, full of secrets. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by evidence of David's betrayal and Dante's dangerous world, and wondered what the hell I'd just agreed to. But I didn't regret it. For the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe. The bedroom Dante had indicated was as minimalist as the rest of the house. A large bed with charcoal linens, a dresser, a chair by the window overlooking the lake. Clean, impersonal, safe. I struggled out of the wedding dress alone. The silk buttons I'd needed help fastening somehow easier to undo. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I left the dress in a pile on the floor like a shed skin and found a robe hanging in the closet. It was too big, clearly Dante's, and smelled faintly of that same cedar scent. I should have felt exposed, vulnerable. Instead, wrapped in his robe in his house, I felt strangely anchored. A knock at the door made me jump. It's me. Dante's voice came through. I have clothes. I opened the door a crack. He stood there with a bag from a boutique whose name I recognized, expensive, exclusive, not the kind of place you could get same-day delivery from unless you had serious pull. How did you... I started. I made a call. He handed me the bag without meeting my eyes. They should fit. If they don't, let me know. Thank you. He nodded and turned to leave, but I caught his arm. The contact shocked us both. I felt him go still under my touch, every muscle locked. Dante, I pulled my hand back quickly. I need to call my mom, just to tell her I'm safe. She must be losing her mind. His jaw tightened. You can't tell her where you are. I won't, but I can't just disappear. Please. He studied me, weighing risks I couldn't see. Finally, he pulled out his phone, not his own, I realized. A burner. 5 minutes, he said. Don't mention David. Don't mention me. Tell her you needed time alone to process and you'll be in touch soon. I took the phone with shaking hands. He stepped back, giving me privacy but not leaving the doorway. Watching. Protective or suspicious? I couldn't tell. I dialed my mother's number from memory. She answered on the first ring. Hello? Mom, it's me. Maya. Her voice cracked with relief and fury. Where are you? What happened? David's parents can't reach him. The guests are going home. Everyone's asking questions I can't answer. I'm okay. I forced calm into my voice. I'm safe. David and I, we had a fight. A bad one. I need some time to figure things out. A fight? Today? About what? I can't explain right now. But I'm staying with a friend. And I'll call you in a few days when I've had time to think. Mia, this is insane. You don't just abandon your wedding because of a fight. Something else is going on. Where is David? Does he know where you are? I glanced at Dante. His expression was unreadable, but he tapped his watch. Time's up. I have to go, Mom. I love you. Tell everyone I'm sorry. Mia, wait. I ended the call and handed the phone back to Dante. My hands were shaking again. You did well, he said quietly. I lied to my mother. You protected her. His correction was firm. The less she knows, the safer she is. Is she in danger? Not if we move quickly. He pocketed the burner. Get dressed. We have work to do. 20 minutes later, I descended the stairs wearing dark jeans and a soft sweater that actually did fit perfectly. Dante was in the kitchen, an open space, with industrial appliances and black granite counters. He'd changed too, traded his suit for dark pants and a fitted black shirt that made him look simultaneously more dangerous and more human. He was making coffee. You cook? I asked, startled. I make coffee. Don't get excited. He poured 2 cups without asking if I wanted one. We need to establish parameters. I accepted the mug and took a sip. Perfect. Of course it was. Parameters for what? For how this works. He leaned against the counter, his focus on me absolute. If you're going to help me bring David in, there are rules. I'm listening. 1. You don't leave this property without me. Not to go home, not to meet friends, not for any reason. That's non-negotiable. His tone left no room for argument. 2. You tell me everything, every detail about David, where he liked to go, who he talked to, what he was afraid of, everything. Fine. 3. If I tell you to do something, you do it immediately. No questions, no hesitation. In this world, hesitation gets you killed. I set my mug down carefully. And what if I don't agree with what you're telling me to do? Then you trust that I know better. He moved closer, and I felt that now familiar pull, danger, and fascination tangled together. I've been doing this for 15 years, Mia. I know how these people think. I know what they're capable of. And I know that the only reason you're still safe is because they don't know yet that you matter. Matter to who? To me. The words hit like a physical touch. He didn't say them softly or romantically, just stated them as fact. But the weight behind them made my breath catch. Why? I whispered. Why do I matter to you? For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. His expression closed off, that careful mask sliding back into place. But then something shifted, a decision made. Because I was supposed to kill you, he said quietly. The world stopped. What? My employer's initial order was to eliminate any loose ends connected to David's theft. That included you. His dark eyes held mine. I came to that bridal suite, planning to assess whether you were involved. If you were, you wouldn't have made it to the parking lot. If you weren't, I was supposed to make it look like you'd run off with David. A disappearance. Clean. Untraceable. Horror and fury warred in my chest. Then why didn't you? Because when I walked into that room and saw you struggling with your dress, terrified and confused, and still hoping your groom would show up. He paused, his jaw tight. You weren't a loose end. You were a victim, and I don't kill victims. How noble of you, I said bitterly. It's not noble. His voice roughened. It's a line I drew a long time ago. The only line I have left. And crossing it for you would have cost me something I'm not willing to lose. What? The last piece of myself I recognize. The confession hung between us, raw and honest in a way that made my chest ache. "So what happens now?" I asked. "If your employer finds out you didn't follow orders?" "Then I deal with the consequences." He straightened, the vulnerability vanishing behind that controlled facade. "But that's my problem. Yours is deciding if you still want to do this, knowing what I was sent to do." I should have been terrified, furious. Should have run as far and as fast as I could. Instead, I picked up my coffee and met his eyes steadily. "Teach me," I said. "Teach you what?" "How to survive in your world. How to think like you do. How to be someone David won't see coming." My voice steadied, hardened. "If I'm going to help you bring him in, I need to know how this game works." Dante stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then, slowly, that almost smile curved his lips. "All right," he said. "Lesson 1. In this world, trust is a weapon, and you just handed me yours. Should I not have? I don't know yet." His honesty was brutal and somehow comforting. But we're about to find out. Living with Dante was like living with a storm contained in glass. All that power and danger held in check by invisible walls. I couldn't see, but felt constantly. The first 3 days passed in a strange rhythm. He worked from his office, on calls I wasn't allowed to overhear, tapping at keyboards, leaving at odd hours, and returning with information he'd share only in fragments. I spent my time reading through David's files, memorizing patterns, trying to think of anything that might help. But it was the quiet moments that unraveled me. Mornings, when I'd come downstairs to find coffee already made, a mug waiting for me beside his at the counter. The way he'd glance up from his laptop and ask, without really asking, if I'd slept. The careful distance he maintained, never touching me, never crowding my space, but always somehow present. On the 4th evening, I found him on the back terrace, staring out at the lake as the sun set. He'd shed his jacket, and his sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms marked with scars I hadn't noticed before. "Can I join you?" I asked. He glanced back, surprised. "It's your house too." For now, I settled into the chair beside his, drawing my knees up and wrapping my arms around them. The air was cool but not uncomfortable. Peaceful, except for the tension radiating off him. "You're worried," I observed. "I'm always worried. It's my default state." "About David?" "About everything." He leaned back, his profile sharp against the fading light. "David's been quiet. Too quiet. He should have surfaced by now, withdrawn money, made contact with an old associate. Something. But there's nothing. Like he vanished completely. Maybe he's better at this than you thought. No one's that good." His frustration bled through, which means either he had help we don't know about, or what? Or he's planning something. A chill ran down my spine. "Like what?" "I don't know." Dante rubbed his face, and for the first time, I saw the exhaustion underneath his control. "That's the problem. I've been doing this long enough to know when something's wrong. And this is wrong." "What does your employer say?" "That I have 1 week before they send someone else to finish what I started." My chest tightened. Someone else meaning someone who won't care whether you're innocent. His dark eyes cut to me. Someone who'll tie up loose ends the efficient way. "So we have a week to find David." "Less than that. 5 days now." The weight of it pressed down on both of us. 5 days to find a man who'd been planning his disappearance for months. 5 days before Dante's protection ran out and I became someone else's problem to solve. "There has to be something we're missing," I said. "Something in the files. Someplace he felt safe or..." "I've read everything 10 times, Mia." "Then let me try." I stood, pacing to the railing. I knew him, lived with him. Maybe I'll see something you wouldn't. "Like what?" "I don't know. But sitting here waiting for someone to come kill me isn't exactly my idea of a good plan." That almost smile flickered across his face. "You're very calm about the possibility of dying." "I'm not calm. I'm terrified." I turned to face him. "But I'm more terrified of being helpless. Of just letting things happen to me because I don't know how to fight back." Dante stood, moving to the railing beside me. Close enough that I could feel the heat of him, but still not touching. "You want to learn how to fight back?" His voice dropped lower. "Really?" "Yes. Then tomorrow, we start training." "Training for what?" "Survival." He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze made my pulse quicken. If you're going to be in this world even temporarily, you need to know how to protect yourself, how to read a room, how to lie convincingly, how to stay alive when everything goes wrong. You'll teach me that? I'll teach you everything I can in the time we have." His jaw tightened. "And hope it's enough." We stood there on the terrace as darkness fell, the lake turning black and silver under the rising moon. I should have gone inside, put distance between us, but I couldn't make myself move. "Dante?" My voice came out softer than I intended. "Why are you really doing this?" "I told you." "No. I mean, why are you risking everything for me? Your job, your employer's trust, maybe your life. I'm nobody. A stranger who walked out of a wedding. Why does any of this matter to you?" He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "Because when I looked at you in that bridal suite, I saw something I'd forgotten existed." He stared out at the water. "Innocence. Hope. Someone who still believed the world could be good. And I couldn't." He stopped, his hands gripping the railing hard enough that his knuckles went white. "I've done terrible things, Mia. Things I can't take back and wouldn't even if I could. But I'm not so far gone that I can destroy something pure just because I was ordered to." My throat tightened. "I'm not pure. You are to me." He turned his head, and the look in his eyes made my breath stop. "You're everything this world isn't. And keeping you safe, keeping you, that matters more than any order I've ever been given." The confession hung between us, weighted with truth and danger, and something I was too afraid to name. I reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and placed my hand over his on the railing. He went utterly still, like my touch was something fragile, something that might break him if he acknowledged it. "Thank you," I whispered, "for not killing me, for protecting me, for seeing me." His hand turned under mine, his fingers curling around my palm in a grip that was both gentle and desperate. "Mia, I know. I didn't know what I was agreeing to, just that something was happening between us that terrified and steadied me in equal measure. I know." We stood like that until the moon rose fully and the night turned cold. Then, wordlessly, Dante pulled his hand away and stepped back. "You should get some sleep," he said, his voice carefully neutral again. "Tomorrow's going to be difficult." I nodded and went inside, feeling his eyes on me the whole way. That night, lying in bed in his guest room, wearing clothes he'd bought me, I realized something that should have terrified me but somehow didn't. I wasn't afraid of Dante. I was afraid of how much I was starting to trust him. And in his world, trust was the most dangerous thing you could give someone. Dante woke me at dawn. "Get dressed," he said through the door. "Training starts now." I stumbled downstairs 20 minutes later to find him in the living room. He'd pushed the furniture to the walls, creating an open space on the hardwood floor. "This isn't a gym," I pointed out. "You won't always have a gym." He tossed me a bottle of water. Lesson 1. Awareness. Most people go through life half asleep. In this world, that gets you killed. Close your eyes. "What?" "Close your eyes." I did. Heard him move around the room, his footsteps barely audible. "Tell me where I am," he said. "Behind me. Maybe 6 feet." "Good. Now tell me if I'm armed." My eyes flew open. "How would I—" "You listen. You pay attention to weight distribution, to the way someone moves. I'm carrying a weapon on my right hip. You can hear the difference in my gait." He moved again. "Close your eyes." We did this for an hour. Then he taught me how to scan a room when I entered it exits. People, potential threats. How to memorize faces. How to lie with my body language as much as my words. By midday, I was exhausted and frustrated. "I'm not good at this," I said, gulping water. "You're better than you think." He handed me a towel. "You're observant. You just need to trust your instincts more." My instincts told me David was a good man. No, they didn't. Dante's correction was firm. You ignored your instincts because you wanted to believe in the fairy tale. There's a difference. I sank onto the couch. "How do you know?" "Because when I asked you about him, you hesitated before defending him. That hesitation, that's your instinct screaming that something's wrong. You just didn't want to listen." He was right. God, he was right. I had felt it, that creeping unease. Those moments when David's stories didn't quite line up. The times he'd snapped at me or avoided questions. I'd felt all of it and convinced myself I was being paranoid. I was an idiot, I muttered. You were human. Dante sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. We all want to believe the people we love are who we think they are. That's not weakness, it's hope. Hope is what almost got me killed. No, David's choices almost got you killed. There's a difference. I looked at him at this man who'd walked into my life as a threat and somehow become the only thing keeping me grounded. Do you ever hope for anything? His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face before he locked it down. Not anymore. Why not? Because hope requires believing things can be better, and I've seen too much to believe that. That's sad. That's realistic. He stood, putting distance between us again. Take a break. We'll do more this afternoon. But I caught his wrist before he could walk away. Dante, wait. He froze, his entire body going tense under my touch. Slowly, he looked down at where my fingers circled his wrist, then up to my face. What? His voice was rough. Do I scare you? What? No. His denial was immediate. Why would you think that? Because every time I touch you, you look like you're about to bolt. I released him, suddenly self-conscious. If I'm crossing a line, you're not. He sat back down, but this time he was the one who closed the distance. You don't scare me, Mia. You terrify me. I don't understand the difference. Scared is what I feel walking into a room full of armed men. Terrified is what I feel when you look at me like I'm something other than a monster. My breath caught. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things. Maybe. But monsters don't save people. They don't risk everything to protect strangers. They don't teach someone how to survive instead of just making them disappear. His jaw clenched. You don't know what I've done. Then tell me. Why would you want to know? Because I'm trusting you with my life. I shifted to face him fully. And I need to understand who you really are. For a long moment, I thought he'd shut down again, push me away with silence or deflection. But then something broke in his careful control. I've killed 17 people, he said quietly. Maybe more. I stopped counting after a while. Some of them deserved it. They were threats, criminals, people who'd hurt others. Some of them... He stopped, his hands clenching. Some of them were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Loose ends, problems that needed solving. And you regret those. Every single one. His dark eyes met mine. But regret doesn't change what I am, what I'll always be. I should have been horrified, should have pulled away. Instead, I reached out and covered his hand with mine. You're also the man who makes me coffee every morning, I said softly. Who teaches me how to survive instead of doing the easier thing? Who looks at me like I faltered. Like you're what? His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Like I matter. His control shattered. He moved before I could react. One hand coming up to cup my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him. You do matter, he said roughly. More than you should. More than is safe. And I don't know what to do with that. My heart hammered against my ribs. Dante, I want to kiss you. The confession came out raw. I've wanted to since I fastened your wedding dress and you looked at me like I was the answer to a question you hadn't asked yet. But if I do, if I cross that line, everything changes. Maybe I want it to change, I whispered. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. For one perfect, suspended moment. I thought he would. His gaze dropped to my lips, his body leaning toward mine with an inevitability that felt like gravity. Then his phone rang. The spell broke. Dante pulled back, his expression closing off as he reached for the phone. He glanced at the screen and went rigid. I have to take this. He stood, already moving toward his office. Stay here. He disappeared down the hallway, leaving me alone on the couch with my heart racing and my skin still tingling from where he'd touched me. I heard his voice through the door, low, controlled, but with an edge that made my stomach knot. He was speaking Italian, which I didn't understand, but the tone was unmistakable. Something had gone wrong. When he emerged 15 minutes later, his face was carved from stone. Pack a bag, he said. We're leaving. What? Why? David resurfaced. His eyes were dark with something dangerous. and he sent a message specifically for you. What kind of message? Dante's jaw tightened. The kind that means we're out of time. The safe house was 2 hours north, buried deep in the mountains where cell service was spotty and the roads turned to dirt. Dante drove in silence, his focus absolute, while I sat beside him trying to process what he'd told me before we left. David had sent a video to one of Dante's contacts. In it, he'd looked directly at the camera and said my name. Told me he was sorry. Told me he'd made a deal that would keep me safe. But I had to trust him one more time. Then he'd given coordinates and a time. Tomorrow night. Alone. It's a trap, Dante had said flatly. He's either working with the Lucianos to draw you out, or he's desperate enough to think he can negotiate using you as leverage. Either way, you're not going. But I'd seen something else in that video. Something Dante, for all his skill at reading people, had missed because he didn't know David the way I did. David had been terrified. Now, as we pulled up to a cabin that looked like it had been abandoned for decades but was probably full of expensive security systems, I knew I had to say something. I need to go tomorrow, I said as Dante killed the engine. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. No. He's scared, Dante. Whatever deal he made, it's falling apart. If there's a chance to bring him in, there's a better chance you'll end up dead. He turned to face me, and his expression was harder than I'd ever seen it. I won't let you walk into a trap. Then come with me. We'll figure out a way to... No. The word was final. You're not going, Mia. That's not negotiable. Anger flared in my chest. You don't get to make that decision for me. Actually, I do. You agreed to follow my lead. This is me leading. By keeping me locked away like I'm helpless? I shoved open the car door and climbed out. I'm not a prisoner, Dante. You are if it keeps you alive. He was out of the car and around to my side in seconds. Do you understand what these people do? What they're capable of? David offering you a meeting isn't a reconciliation. It's bait. And I will not watch you die because you wanted to believe in him one more time. This isn't about believing in him, my voice cracked. This is about ending this. About getting my life back. About not spending the rest of my existence looking over my shoulder wondering when someone's going to decide I'm too much of a loose end to keep around. The truth of it hung between us, ugly and undeniable. Dante's expression shifted, something breaking behind his eyes. You think I'd let that happen? You won't have a choice. You said it yourself, your employer gives you 1 week, and then someone else takes over. What happens to me then, Dante? When you're not around to protect me anymore? He stepped closer, his control fracturing. Then I don't leave. What? I don't leave. His voice roughened. I walk away from the job, from my employer, from all of it, and I make sure you're safe, whatever it takes. I stared at him. You can't do that. They'll kill me. Probably. His dark eyes held mine. But I've been dead inside for years anyway. At least this way. It'll mean something. Dante, no. Yes. He moved closer, and suddenly I was backed against the car with nowhere to go. You want to know the truth? The real reason I can't let you walk into that meeting? It's not just tactical. It's not just about protecting an asset or following protocol. It's because the thought of you in danger makes me want to burn the entire world down until you're safe. And that... He stopped, his jaw clenching. That's not something I know how to handle. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm compromised. His hand came up to cut my face, and this time there was no hesitation. Just need. I'm saying that every rule I've ever followed, every line I've ever drawn, none of it matters compared to keeping you alive. And that's terrifying. Why? Because caring about someone in my world is how you get them killed. Then stop caring. I didn't mean it. God, I didn't mean it. Too late. His forehead dropped to mine, and I felt him shaking. It's already too late. Dante. He kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate and raw, and tasted like fear and longing tangled together. His hand slid into my hair, angling my head, while his other arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me against him like he was afraid I'd disappear. I should have pushed him away. Should have remembered all the reasons this was dangerous and wrong and complicated beyond measure. Instead, I kissed him back, my hands fisted in his shirt, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop spinning. He made a sound low in his throat, something between a groan and a surrender, and backed me more firmly against the car. "Tell me to stop," he muttered against my lips. "Tell me this is a mistake." "I can't. Mia, I don't want you to stop." The words came out shaky. "Honest. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to keep pretending I don't feel this." He pulled back just enough to search my face, his breath ragged. "Feel what?" "Safe with you. Seen by you." I touched his face, feeling the stubble rough against my palm. Like maybe the world didn't end when David left. Maybe it just changed into something different. Something better? His tone was disbelieving. "I don't know yet, but I want to find out." He kissed me again, softer this time but no less intense. Then he pulled away, grabbing our bags from the trunk with shaking hands. "Inside," he said roughly. "Now, before I completely lose what's left of my control." The cabin was small, one main room with a fireplace, a kitchenette, and a single bedroom visible through an open door. Dante dropped the bags and immediately started checking windows, locks, sightlines. Always working, always protecting. I watched him, my lips still tingling from his kiss, my heart still racing. "Don't." He turned from the window, and the look on his face stole my breath. Want and restraint and something that looked almost like pain. "I need you to understand something," he said quietly. "If we do this, if we cross this line, I can't go back. I can't pretend I don't." He stopped, searching for words. "You'll be mine, and I protect what's mine with everything I have, even if it destroys me." The possessiveness in his voice should have scared me. Instead, it sent heat rushing through my veins. "Maybe I want to be yours," I whispered. His control shattered. He crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed me like he was drowning, and I was air. His hands were everywhere, my face, my waist, sliding into my hair, but always gentle despite the desperation. Like I was something precious he was afraid of breaking. "Tell me if I'm going too fast," he murmured against my throat. "Tell me if you want me to stop." "Don't stop." My hands found the hem of his shirt, sliding underneath to feel the heat of his skin. He was all hard muscle and scars. "Please don't stop." He lifted me easily, carrying me toward the bedroom while I wrapped my legs around his waist. The bed was simple white sheets, thick blankets, and when he laid me down, he did it with a reverence that made my throat tight. "You're sure?" His dark eyes searched mine. "Mia, you're sure?" "Yes." I pulled him down to me. "I'm sure." What happened next was slow and careful, and nothing like I'd imagined. Dante touched me like I was something holy, worshipped me with hands and lips, and whispered words in Italian that I didn't understand but felt in my bones. And when I finally surrendered completely, when I let him in and held nothing back, it wasn't just physical. It was trust made tangible. It was choosing danger over safety because safety without him felt like a lie. It was falling and knowing he'd catch me, even if it meant we both burned. Afterwards, I lay curled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. His arm was tight around me, possessive even in rest. "I'm still going tomorrow," I whispered into the darkness. I felt him go rigid. "Mia, but you're coming with me." I tilted my head up to meet his eyes. "We'll do it your way, careful, controlled, safe as we can make it. But I'm not hiding anymore. I need to face him. I need to end this." He stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Together," he said roughly. "We do it together." "Together," I agreed. He kissed my forehead and pulled me closer, and I fell asleep wrapped in the arms of a killer who'd become my protector. My choice, my danger, mine. The coordinates David had given led to an abandoned warehouse on the city's industrial edge, the kind of place where bad things happened and no one asked questions. Dante had spent the entire day preparing. He'd called in favors, positioned people I couldn't see in places I didn't know existed, and armed me with a small handgun I prayed I wouldn't have to use. "Stay behind me," he said for the 10th time as we approached the warehouse entrance. "If anything goes wrong, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help me. Just run. I'm not leaving you. Mia, I'm not." I met his eyes. "We're doing this together." That was the deal. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Just reached out and squeezed my hand once quick, reassuring before slipping back into that cold, controlled version of himself I'd first met. The warehouse door was unlocked. Inside, sodium lights cast harsh shadows across empty space and rusted machinery. The air smelled like oil and decay. "David," I called, my voice echoing. "I'm here." For a long moment, nothing. Then movement in the shadows, and David stepped into the light. He looked terrible. Thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes and a desperate energy that made him seem like a stranger. When he saw me, relief and fear crossed his face in equal measure. "Mia," his voice cracked. "Thank God. You thought I'd be stupid enough to come alone?" Dante stepped up beside me, his gun drawn but lowered. "Tell us why we're here, Castellano." David's eyes widened when he saw Dante. "You brought him? Mia, do you have any idea who that is? What he does?" "I know exactly who he is." I kept my voice steady. "And I know exactly what you did. The embezzling, the Lucianos, selling information about my family. All of it." David flinched. "I can explain." "I don't want explanations." Anger gave me courage. "I want to know why. Why you did this to me. Why you made me complicit in your crimes. Why you were going to leave me to deal with the consequences while you ran. Because I was scared." His composure cracked. "The Lucianos, they were going to kill me if I didn't pay them back. I needed money, fast, and your father's company was right there. I thought I could skim a little, fix everything, and no one would ever know. But it spiraled. And then they wanted more. They wanted information I couldn't give them without—" He stopped, looking at me with something like guilt. "Without you. So you used me. I loved you." He took a step forward, and immediately Dante moved between us. "I still love you. That's why I'm here. I made a deal, Mia. I give them what they want, and they let you walk away clean. No involvement, no retaliation. You get to go back to your life." "What deal?" Dante's voice was deadly quiet. David's eyes slid away. "I give them the access codes. And I give them him." Understanding hit me like ice water. This was a setup. "I'm sorry." David's expression twisted. "But he's the one they really want. He's cost them millions in disrupted operations. If I deliver him, they'll forgive my debt and leave you alone. You'll be safe. You sold me out to save yourself," Dante said flatly. Again, "I sold you out to save her." David's voice rose. "You're a killer, a criminal. She's innocent. Don't you think she deserves better than being dragged into your world?" "She deserves better than you," Dante said coldly. Then the lights went out. Everything happened at once. Gunfire erupted from the shadows. Dante shoved me behind a concrete pillar and returned fire, his movements efficient and lethal. I heard shouting men moving through the darkness, closing in. "Stay down!" Dante barked at me. I pressed myself against the pillar, my heart hammering, while chaos exploded around me. More gunfire, the sound of someone screaming, breaking glass. Then Dante was beside me, breathing hard, blood on his sleeve. "You're hit. Graze. I'm fine." He ejected his magazine, reloaded with practiced ease. "There are 6 of them. Maybe more outside. We need to move." "What about David?" "Forget David. He brought you here to die." As if summoned by his name, David appeared, grabbed by 2 men in dark suits. He was fighting, but uselessly. "Mia." He struggled toward me. "Run, please." One of the men hit him, and David went down hard. Rage I didn't know I was capable of flooded through me. Before I could think, I stepped out from behind the pillar, raising the gun Dante had given me. "Let him go." The men turned, and I saw their faces cold, professional, unbothered by the weapon in my shaking hands. "Little girl playing hero," one said in accented English. "Put the gun down before you hurt yourself. Let him go." "Mia, get back," Dante started. The man holding David smiled. "You want him? Come get him." Then he lifted his own gun and aimed it at David's head. I fired. The recoil shocked me, sent me stumbling backward. But my shot went wide, hitting the man's shoulder instead of anything vital. He cursed, dropping his gun. And then Dante was moving. What happened next was brutally efficient. Dante took down 3 men in less than 30 seconds, disarming, disabling, neutralizing threats with a violence that was almost artistic in its precision. I'd known intellectually what he was capable of. Seeing it was different. He was terrifying. He was saving my life. Both could be true. When the last man went down, Dante stood in the center of the warehouse, surrounded by bodies and spent shells, his chest heaving, blood on his hands. He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the fear underneath his control. "You fired your weapon," he said quietly. "You could have been killed." He was going to shoot David. "David brought you here to be traded like currency." Dante moved toward me, his intensity almost overwhelming. "You don't owe him anything." "Maybe not. But I'm not going to watch someone get executed in front of me." He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he grabbed my face and kissed me hard, desperate and claiming. "You're insane," he muttered against my lips. Beautiful and brave and absolutely insane. I learned from the best. Sirens wailed in the distance. Dante pulled back, listening. "Police. We need to go." He moved to David, who was still on the ground, bleeding from a head wound. "Get up." David looked between us, shocked. "You're taking me with you?" "I'm taking you to someone who will make sure you answer for what you did." Dante hauled him to his feet. "And then I'm making sure Mia never has to see you again." We made it to Dante's car just as the police arrived at the other end of the building. He drove fast, David zip-tied in the back seat, while I sat in front trying to process what had just happened. I'd shot someone. I'd watched Dante kill to protect me. I'd chosen him over David without hesitation, and I didn't regret any of it. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To finish this." Dante's grip on the steering wheel was tight. Once and for all. Dante's employer turned out to be a woman. She was in her 60s, elegantly dressed, with steel gray hair and eyes that could cut glass. Her name was Carmela Vittori, and she met us in a private dining room of a restaurant that had been closed to the public for the evening. "So," she said, looking me over with cool assessment, "this is the girl who's caused so much trouble." "With respect, the trouble was already there," Dante replied. He stood slightly in front of me, protective even here. I just chose not to add to it. By ignoring my order, Carmela's voice was silk over steel. By compromising your position and your judgment, by falling for exactly the kind of attachment that makes men in your position liabilities. "Yes," Dante said simply. Carmela's eyes narrowed. "And you think that honesty earns you leniency?" "I think it earns me the right to propose an alternative." David sat in the corner, guarded by two men who looked like they could break him in half without breaking a sweat. He watched our exchange with growing fear. "I'm listening," Carmela said. "David Castellano has information the Lucianos want. Access codes, financial records, client lists." Dante gestured toward him. "Let me deliver him to them as a peace offering. It satisfies their grievance about the theft and removes their interest in Mia." "And what do I get from this arrangement?" Carmela asked. "Besides losing my best problem solver, you get the Lucianos owing you a favor. And you get proof that even when compromised, I can still close a situation cleanly." Carmela considered this, her fingers drumming on the table. Then her attention shifted to me. "What about you, Miss Chen? Do you understand what you've cost him? The position you've put him in?" I lifted my chin. "Yes." "And you're willing to accept the consequences of that?" "What consequences?" "Dante's protection comes with a price. Association with him means association with this world. With violence and secrets and moral compromises most people can't fathom." Her gaze was unrelenting. "Are you prepared for that? Or will you break the first time you see what he really is?" "I've already seen what he really is." I glanced at Dante, then back to Carmela. "He's someone who chose protecting an innocent person over following orders. Someone who risks everything for people who matter to him. Someone who makes me feel safer than I've ever felt, even knowing what he's capable of." "Sentiment," Carmela said dismissively. "Truth," I countered. "And if the price of being with him is living in this world, then I'm willing to pay it. As long as the choice is mine." Something shifted in Carmela's expression, not warmth, but perhaps respect. She looked at Dante. "You've chosen well, at least." "Yes," Dante said. "I have." "Very well. You have 72 hours to deliver Castellano to the Lucianos. After that, I want you back. We have work to do." She stood, signaling the meeting's end. "And Miss Chen? Welcome to the family. Try not to be a liability." She left, her guards following. The moment they were gone, Dante exhaled hard. That could have gone worse, he muttered. What happens now? I asked. He looked at David, who'd gone pale. Now we finish this. The exchange happened at a neutral location, a parking garage downtown, concrete and shadows and the smell of gasoline. The Lucianos sent 3 representatives, including Vincent Rossi, the man David had originally dealt with. Mr. Leone. Rossi nodded to Dante with something like respect. We were told you might have something for us. Dante pushed David forward. David Castellano. He has access codes, client information, and detailed knowledge of the East Coast medical billing networks you've been trying to penetrate. In exchange, you leave Mia Chen alone. Completely. She's off limits, now and forever. Rossi looked at David, then at me, then back to Dante. And if we agree, then we're done. No retaliation, no further interest. She goes back to her life. What about our losses? The money Castellano stole? He'll tell you where it's hidden. Most of it's still recoverable. Dante's voice was cold. After that, what you do with him is your business. David made a strangled sound. Mia, please, you can't. You sold me out twice, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You don't get to ask me for anything. Rossi smiled. I like her. She's got spine. He gestured to his men, who grabbed David. We have a deal, Mr. Leone. The girl is forgotten. They dragged David away. He was screaming now, begging, but his voice faded as they took him deeper into the garage. I didn't watch. Dante's hand found mine, squeezing gently. Are you all right? I don't know. I looked up at him. Should I feel guilty? For not fighting harder to save him? He made his choices. You made yours. That's all any of us can do. What will they do to him? Make him give up everything he knows. Then probably kill him. Dante's honesty was brutal but somehow comforting. Or keep him alive as an asset if he's useful enough. Either way, he's not your responsibility anymore. And me? Am I your responsibility? No. He turned me to face him fully. You're my choice. What difference? Responsibility is obligation. Choice is... He stopped, searching for words. Choice is wanting someone's safety more than your own. Wanting their happiness even if it means walking away. Choosing them every day even when it's hard. Would you? I asked quietly. Walk away if it meant I'd be safer? He looked at me for a long moment. I'd try, but I don't think I could anymore. Good. I rose on my toes and kissed him. Because I'm choosing you too. We stood there in that parking garage, surrounded by the remnants of my old life and the beginning of something new, and I realized something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't the girl who'd stood in that bridal suite anymore. I was someone harder, braver, more willing to accept that the world wasn't simple or fair or kind. But I was also someone who'd found safety in the most dangerous place. And I wasn't going back. 3 months later, I stood in Dante's kitchen, making coffee while morning light streamed through the windows. It had taken time to adjust to this new life. To the way Dante would disappear for days on jobs he couldn't discuss. To the security measures that were now second nature, checking sight lines, memorizing exits, never sitting with my back to a door. To the carefully maintained distance from my family, who thought I was working through things after the wedding that never happened. They didn't know I'd moved into a house without a public address. They didn't know the man I was living with had killed people. They didn't know I'd made peace with both those facts. You're thinking too loud, Dante said from the doorway. He was barefoot, wearing sleep pants and nothing else, his hair still messy from bed. Domesticated but still dangerous. Just processing, I said. He moved behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. Processing what? How different everything is. How different I am. Regrets? No. I leaned back against him. Just awareness. We'd fallen into a rhythm, the two of us. He taught me things I never imagined. I'd need to know how to disappear in a crowd, how to tell when I was being followed, how to defend myself if things went wrong. And I taught him things he'd forgotten: how to laugh without guards up, how to enjoy a quiet evening without waiting for disaster, how to trust that someone could see the worst parts of him and stay anyway. It wasn't perfect. There were nights when he'd wake from nightmares he wouldn't discuss. Days when I'd catch myself jumping at shadows. Moments when the weight of what we'd both done pressed down like physical force. But it was real. And real, I'd learned, was better than the fairy tale I'd once believed in. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Mom's birthday dinner next week. Are you coming?" I showed Dante. "What do you think?" "I think you should go." He kissed my temple. "You can't avoid them forever. Will you come with me?" He tensed slightly. "Are you sure you want to introduce me? As what? Your boyfriend? The man you're living with?" "They're going to ask questions." "Let them ask." I turned in his arms. "I'll tell them you're a security consultant." Which is technically true. Technically. His lips curved. "And when they ask how we met, I'll say you saved my life." Also technically true. He studied my face, and I saw the concern there. The desire to protect me even from my own choices. "Dante, I'm not ashamed of this," I said softly. "Of us. I know we can't tell them everything, but I'm not going to pretend you don't exist. Even though bringing me into their lives puts them at risk? Does it really?" He was quiet for a moment. "Not if we're careful. And not anymore. Carmela's confirmed the Lucianos have forgotten about you. David's intel was valuable enough that they consider the debt settled. And David? Alive, last I heard. Working for them now, apparently. Turns out he has a talent for money laundering." Dante's tone was flat. "Justice isn't always what we want it to be." I'd accepted that. David was alive but trapped in the world he'd tried to exploit. There was a certain poetry to it. "So we're safe?" I asked. "Actually safe? As safe as anyone in this world gets." He brushed hair back from my face. "There are always threats, Mia. Always people who might resurface. Situations that could spiral. That's the reality of the life I live. The life you've chosen to share." "I know. And you're still okay with it?" "I'm still here, aren't I?" He kissed me, then slow and deep and full of promises we both knew might be impossible to keep but would try for anyway. When he pulled back, his expression was serious. "I need to tell you something." My stomach tightened. "What?" "Carmela offered me a promotion. Oversight position. More money, more authority, less field work. That's good, isn't it? It means I'd be safer, home more often. But it also means more responsibility, more involvement in decisions that affect people's lives." His dark eyes searched mine. "Decisions that might not always sit well with you." I understood what he was really asking. Could I live with loving someone who made those kinds of choices? Who operated in shades of gray I'd never had to navigate before? "Will you tell me?" I asked. "When those decisions keep you up at night?" "Yes." "Will you let me remind you why you drew the lines you did? Why you're not just another killer?" His jaw tightened. "If you think it'll help, then I can live with it." I touched his face. "Because I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to let me see all of who you are. The good, the bad, and everything in between. What if the bad outweighs the good? It doesn't. Not to me." He pulled me close, holding me like I was something precious and fragile and strong all at once. "I don't deserve you. Probably not." I smiled against his chest. "But you're stuck with me anyway." We stood there in the kitchen while coffee cooled and morning stretched into day. And I thought about the girl I'd been 3 months ago. The one who'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings and men who promised forever. She was gone. In her place was someone harder. Someone who understood that love wasn't always soft or safe. That protection sometimes looked like violence. That choosing someone meant choosing their darkness along with their light. But I was also someone who'd found something real in the wreckage of everything I'd thought I wanted. And I'd learned that real was so much better than perfect. Epilogue. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, I received a letter. No return address. Postmarked from somewhere in South America. Inside, a single sheet of paper with David's handwriting. "Mia, I know I don't have the right to contact you. I know I destroyed everything we had and I deserve whatever hatred you feel. But I need you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. For using you, betraying you, putting you in danger. You deserved better than what I gave you. I hear you're with him now. Dante Leone. Part of me wants to warn you away, tell you that world will only bring you pain. But I saw the way he looked at you in that warehouse, like you were worth dying for. And I realized I never looked at you like that. Not once. Maybe that's the real difference between men like him and men like me. He destroys for the people he protects. I destroyed the people who trusted me. I hope you're happy. I hope you found something real with him, even if it's dangerous. Real is what you always deserved. I hope you never think of me again. David. I read it twice. Then I showed it to Dante. He read it silently, his expression unreadable. How do you feel? Sad, I admitted. For the girl who loved him. For the future we might have had if he'd been different. Do you wish things had turned out another way? I looked at Dante, at this complicated, dangerous, protective man who'd entered my life as a threat and become my entire world. No, I said honestly. I don't. He pulled me close, and I breathed him in cedar and danger, and home all tangled together. Outside, the world kept spinning. Threats still existed, dangers still lurked. The darkness we both lived in hadn't disappeared just because we'd found each other inside it. But we'd also found something else. A light that only existed because we'd both been willing to walk through fire to reach it. And that was worth every risk, every choice, every consequence. I love you, I whispered against his chest. He tensed, he always did when I said it, like the words were foreign and frightening and precious all at once. I know, he said quietly. I know you do. You don't have to say it back. I know that too. He tilted my face up, his dark eyes holding mine with an intensity that stole my breath. But I do. Love you. Even though I shouldn't. Even though it makes me weak. Even though it terrifies me every single day. Why does it terrify you? Because love is the only thing left that can destroy me. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. And you hold all of it. I rose on my toes and kissed him. Then I'll be careful with it. Promise? Promise. He smiled, rare and genuine and devastating, and kissed me back. And in that moment, standing in the wreckage and reconstruction of everything I'd thought my life would be, I realized something fundamental. The fairy tale hadn't been wrong. It had just been incomplete. Because happily ever after wasn't about perfection or safety or love that never hurt. It was about finding someone worth fighting for. Someone worth surviving for. Someone worth choosing. Every single day, even when the darkness pressed close. And I'd found that. Not in a white dress walking down an aisle, but in a stranger's hands fastening buttons while my world fell apart. In his quiet voice telling me my groom wasn't coming. In the moment I chose danger over safety and never looked back. That was my fairy tale. Violent and complicated and imperfectly, dangerously real. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.